Alright, dividing by decimals. Alright, there are 3 steps here, and when you do divisions, you want to really practice these 3 steps over and over and over again. But the first one is this. If we have to divide, we do not want to divide by a decimal. We want to make sure that we divide with a whole number. So what you can do is move that decimal over 1, but if you move it over 1 here, you have to move it over 1 inside as well, which gives us this. And this is a lot easier to use. So whenever you have a decimal on the outside, whenever you have a divisor that is a decimal, you want to get rid of it. Now 13 into 33 would give us 2. And that gives us 7. Bring down the 2. And you want to take that decimal and just put it right above where it's supposed to be, because each of these have to stay exactly how they're supposed to be. This 2, this 3, this 6, and this 7, they all represent 1s. This 3 and this 2, they represent 10s. That's 30 and 20. These are tenths and these are hundredths. So that decimal right there is going to separate our whole parts from our decimal parts. Okay, so now 13 into 72, we're asking how many tenths will go into 72. How many tenths times 13 will give us that 72? So what do we have? Well, if you don't know, guess. 13 times 5, it's 65. 13 times 6, it's 78. Well, it has to be a 5. And then we know the 6 gave us 78. And there we go. So the answer is 2.56. Whenever you divide by a decimal, you're going to end up with 2 different answers. Number 1 like we just did, where you're going to get a remainder of 0. The decimal will end. And then the second type is the one we're going to do next, and that's when the decimal does not end. Okay, so when dividing into a whole number, you want to make sure you add a decimal. We are not doing remainders anymore. So start by just writing it as if it's money. So you have $25. 3 into 25. Now 3 into 10. And then again. And you notice there's a repetition here. We have 10 minus 9, 10 minus 9. And what do you think we're going to get again? Exactly 10, and then we'll do minus 9. So we're getting as a constant repetition like this. And so instead of just keep rewriting it, we can put that little repeating bar right above the 3. And then that is our answer. And these are the 2 different types you're going to get. The fractions are either going to repeat or they're going to end. And then we have a third question that's going to be asked, and that's round to the nearest hundredth. And these are for our application. Sometimes you don't want to know the entire number. Sometimes you just want to know the hundredths. So again, write it as if it's money. So 13, and we're thinking about it, we have 13 into 200. So if we have a $200 bill, like an actual check that came to our table, and there's 13 people, how much does each person basically need to pay? That's what this type of question is. And that's where we round to the nearest hundredth place. When you're talking about money, if you have $3, your cents is the hundredths place. So that's why we would round to the nearest hundredths. Okay, so 13 into 20. 13 into 70. We know that was a 5 because it gives us 65. It's right above. 13 into 50. Well, let's guess on that. We knew a 4. That's 52, so it has to be the 3, which gives us 39. It's 110. So again, we want to guess 13 times 8. 104, that's going to be close enough. 8, so we get 104. 6, and you just keep going. You would think, oh, we're only rounding to the hundredths, why am I keep going? You'll see in a minute. 13 into 60, we know that's a 4. It's 52, and it doesn't really matter what's after that. But the reason you have to go one more spot is because of this. Whenever you're rounding, so if we're rounding to the nearest hundredths, we need one more number for our test digit. So if it says round to the hundredths, you're going to have to keep going until you have the thousandths place value. If it says round to the nearest tenths, you're going to have to keep going until you have the hundredths place value. You could just keep going if you wanted constantly, but we have to round this, and this number rounded is 15.5. 0.39. So if this was the check, say that there's a $200 check with 13 people, each person would be responsible for $15.39. Okay, so those are our 3 different questions you're going to get. The decimal will end right here. It will repeat, and you'll see the repetition here in the problem. Don't just notice the repetition up here, you have to focus on it down here. The problem itself has to be repeating. Or the question will ask you to round to the nearest hundredth or thousands or tenths or even dollar. And then you have to. Alright, so I will leave you with one final question. Why do we want the divisor to be a whole number? So think about it. Go back to that first question. Give me a reason on why we had to move the decimal.